Good morning. I'm John Franklin. Welcome to the Smithsonian Archives. I'm a senior manager in the Office of External Affairs, and right now we're in the Power of Place exhibition on the third floor of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which focuses on community. And in this case, we're looking at a story from 1921 of Tulsa, Oklahoma. My grandfather's people arrive in Oklahoma in the 1830s as slaves to Chickasaw Indians. The land is considered worthless. It's far from the oceans. It doesn't have rivers. It's not rich land. But while my grandfather's away in college in 1901, petroleum is discovered, and Native and African Americans who have land become wealthy. And Tulsa develops a black community called Black Wall Street with oil leasing, restaurants, hotels, theaters, banks, furniture stores, grocery stores, and homes. And in the matter of 2 days, May 31st, June 1st, 1921, the entire community is burned down. This exhibition explores the development of that community and its destruction. We've had to obtain artifacts, documents, and oral histories from individuals and from institutions in order to construct this story. And I've worked with Paul Gardulo to do so. Some of the artifacts that we have are images such as this image of my grandfather from the Tennessee State Archives, taken when he was in college. And here is his typewriter, which I gave to the museum. He not only was an attorney, but he wrote a weekly column in the Black Paper. Here he is sitting in a Red Cross tent with his law partner, I.H. Spears, and Effie Thompson, their secretary, after their law offices are burned to the ground. We also have archival sources for postcards that were made at the time and distributed widely across the country. Little Africa on Fire, Tulsa Race Riot, June 1st, 1921. It's a picture of churches burning, pictures of corpses in the street, pictures of people being rounded up and taken to detention centers. We have incredible film footage from 1921. Please send your questions to the comment page in Facebook. I look forward to answering your questions in the course of this discussion. Here we have both photographs and live footage of, this is the Red Cross disseminating clothing, food, dishes to people who have lost everything. We also have oral history testimony from those who survived the massacre. And we've been able to not only capture those oral histories, but the histories of the people who survived it. And they have been the advocates for reparations. Because this was a riot, the insurance companies did not compensate the people who lost their businesses, their homes, their livelihood. And so these are images of those who survived, and a sign and a button from those demanding reparations now. This is a story that's been hidden. People in Tulsa didn't know about it. I've spoken with teachers who had to learn about it in order to teach it to their students. This is a picture of my dad here on the left. That's my dad as a descendant of a survivor, and he spoke in Congress as well. The building, this exhibition has a wraparound panorama of the destruction of the community. And indeed, here we have pennies that were melted in the fire of the massacre. It's initially been called a race riot, but a riot assumes in our society that African Americans tore things down. These were actually white looters who looted the homes and then marched the African Americans from their homes to detention centers in the city. Are we ready to take questions now? Do we have any questions?
We have a question from Julie Hilton Steele. How widely was this covered in the national news at the time, or was it covered up?
We have news clippings from across the country at that time, but then since then the information has been covered up. And people in Tulsa didn't know about it, black and white to a great extent. Some people had learned about it in their homes, most people did not.
We have a question from Mikkel Self, do you have any oral histories of white people in Tulsa during that time?
We are coming up on the centennial and indeed are seeking additional eyewitness accounts. I know that one day I was at the Greenwood Cultural Center and a family was packing up their mother's things as they were moving her to a retirement community, and they found a letter she had written, that a white woman had written, describing what she had seen and what her eyewitness account was. And so we're using the opportunity leading up to the centennial in Tulsa to try to acquire additional archival material. We know that this material exists in black and white homes, and that we need indeed to acquire those things before they're thrown out.
So say I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and I visit Power of Place. What kinds of material will I find about my own hometown?
Well, Power of Place tells the story of 10 different communities. The exhibition was created to give Americans and our visitors to the museum the understanding of how the African American experience differs geographically and over time. So we look at California in the 1840s. This is a story from Oklahoma in the 1920s. We're looking at black leisure community in Oak Bluffs on Martha's Vineyard. We're looking at the creation of hip hop in New York in the 70s. So this is to give a sampling of the regional experiences. And then in this museum, you can add your own story. And that's what we're encouraging people to do. There are places in different parts of the museum where you can tell your story.
Okay, a question about this particular story and what do you hope young people walk away with after seeing the Tulsa Riot material?
Well, first, we have to realize how mean people can be. Unfortunately, these buildings that you see here were destroyed because they were bombed from private planes which dropped burning turpentine bombs on the roofs of the buildings. So the photographs that you have of these buildings before the riot, the buildings are all burned from the top down. So we need to understand what people can do to each other. But also it's a story of how you can rebound from that. You can lose absolutely everything and then find the will and courage and energy to rebuild on the ashes.
Great. So someone wants to know how these artifacts were gathered and where are they from?
Most of them are from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Paul and I went to people's homes and talked with them, and families agreed to give us these artifacts. As it became known in Tulsa that we were trying to tell this story, people came forth, and that's how we acquired the oral histories, the buttons, the signs. I made my contributions of photographs with assistance from my wife and family friends. And so we've been very fortunate that people have been generous with their time, generous with their artifacts, because they wanted the story to be told at a national level, and of course, because this is the Smithsonian, it will also be told at the international level. Now we're going to the American History Museum page to discuss culture and food with my curator colleague, Joanne Hippolyte. Thank you.